All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Environment and Sustainability Committee meeting. Welcome to you all. Item number 1, apologies. Sorry.
Chair, we have received apologies from Councillor Mathur, and Councillor Saliagopoulos is attending as his substitute.
Thank you. Can I draw your attention to the minutes, which are on pages 5 to 10 of the pack. Can we confirm this is a correct record of the minutes of the Environment and Sustainability Committee meeting held on the 19th of March 2026? Agreed. Thank you. Item 3, disclosures of interest. Does anybody have any disclosures of interest that they, sorry, I lost my place on the page, yeah, sorry. I'm not going to read all that out yet. Does any member have a disclosure of interest to make in relation to any item on the agenda? Yes.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I must say how smart you look in your shirt and tie. I have an interest in the local plan, and so I shall be leaving when the discussions on that start. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to apologise, I've been remiss. I need to just read out one or two points I should have read before. To note that this is a meeting is being live broadcast to YouTube for the public to see and hear the proceedings, so please turn on your microphone when speaking. Can I ask everyone to turn off their mobile phones or switch them to silent, please? And in the event of a fire alarm sounding, please follow the council officers out of the building and do not use the lift. Can I also remind members, where necessary, to complete the gifts and hospitality register located next to the sign-in sheet. And as chair, I'm entrusted to maintain decorum of this meeting. I would therefore like to remind councillors that respect is to be shown to all members and officers in the chamber. When someone is speaking, I would ask that other members listen and do not hold their own private conversations. Any members who do not respect this will be reminded. The intention is for the meeting to finish by 10 p.m. For officers present, once you've finished presenting your item, please feel free to leave the meeting. You're equally welcome to stay for the whole meeting if you choose. Sorry about having to go back to that. Item 4, back to item 4 now. We've not received any questions from the public. Item 5 is to consider the commencement of a joint open tender procurement exercise with neighbouring councils for the provision of tree maintenance services. May I ask Jackie Taylor, Group Head Neighbourhood Services, to introduce this item? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as you said, it's a report requesting the authority to commence a procurement exercise jointly with Runnymede and Surrey Heath. The procurement is to be managed by the three councils. The procurement exercise is to be managed for the three councils by Runnymede Borough Council, who work closely with Spelsthorne anyway with procurement exercise we undertake. This procurement will align with the transition towards LGR, as it enables councils to establish effective partnerships and shared practices ahead of formal arrangements and the formal reorganisation, so that we can ensure continuity and resilience during the transition. And one of those is that we mustn't let things not be in place by the 1st of April, because otherwise it will be difficult for the Future West to actually manage them. So why are we doing this now? Mainly because an internal audit was conducted in 24-25, which identified risks in the recording and management of tree maintenance activities. And as I'm sure you'll be aware that regularly you see in the press where there's been unfortunate accidents because there's been some sort of tree fall, branch fall, whatever. Now, whilst we can't negate all of those things from happening, we must make sure that we have proper records to show that we have carried out our surveys and we've got them properly recorded in a proper tree programme. And what we do from there is that tree programme will alert us when we're due to go and do a new survey in the park, because this is on Spelsthorne land only, and we would normally do that within 5 years of the last one being undertaken, unless there were any major concerns. And obviously from those tree surveys, the professional arborist will actually tell us whether or not there are any recommended tree works. Sometimes there are, sometimes there aren't. Now, due to the extra work that we're having to do, what we did last year, or this year actually, is we've identified some savings within our existing establishment list within the grounds maintenance team, so that we could actually make some savings from that post, but also put some more money towards this particular work. So it's, whereas we would normally only do 30 to 35,000 pounds worth of work, which sounds a lot, but it's not in terms of Tree World. We now propose that this is to try and get ourselves into a really good order. Although audit are happy with what we've progressed with so far, we will undertake to spend £65,000 with a contractor, and no more, hopefully less. But this procurement will run for 24 months with an option to extend for 12 months, should we wish to. I'd also note that actually we also have our own parks team, and they also undertake tree works, so we don't necessarily put it out to a contractor. If we can do it ourselves, we will always do it ourselves, because obviously we have a fully paid for team, and we've also upskilled them over the last year to help them to understand safe tree works, and also they're able to fell trees now in safe conditions. So this is just what this report is about. So I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions to Jackie? Councillor Beecher.
Quick question, Jackie. Before this contract is novated over to West Surrey, who will administer it on behalf of the councils?
Well, we will be we'll have individual contracts. So we're not entering into one big one. We'll have a contract ourselves, because each local authority has a different value, and we don't want to be put with somebody else and not use that value, because we might get penalised. So we'll be managing our own contract, ordering our own works, and it's just with us.
Thank you. Councillor Borflow. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. A promotion at last. Lovely. Jackie, really pleased. And the way Neighbourhood Services runs is fantastic. It really is. Yeah, very reactive, very quick. Always support you, and really pleased to see that you're upskilling people. Can we not just upskill some more and keep it all within house? I'd really like that. And when they get really good, then they can go and do their own private work, and then you can cycle youngsters through who want to chainsaw trees in a canopy, etc., and have £7,000 worth of 1 to 7 chainsaw courses invested in them in tree. And then they can go on. So I'd love that to be kind of like an incubator for tree surgeons that can do the stuff here and then move on.
Okay, I have to be very honest, we did try that, but the costs associated with setting up your own tree service is very expensive. We were still considering it until we knew we were going to be moving into LGRs, but it's something that we can think about once we get through into West Surrey, because I'm sure there are others that would probably want those skills as well. But yeah, they're very good, they're very upskilled, and they're all trained to do it actually. So where we have a tree fall, they're able to cut them up, move it to one side. If we need to take a tree down, they're able to do that under safe conditions. What they can't do at the moment is climb, but we're working on that one.
Thank you. Councillor Sexton.
Thank you. Can you please advise how this will be overseen, and who will be looking at the performance of the contractors and what that's going to look like, please? And the measurements, KPIs and SLAs, thank you.
KPIs will have already been looked at by the procurement team at Runnymede. They're the experts in the field, so we've worked with them to actually pull those together. We can't put too many requirements into a contract, otherwise the contract's just going to get more expensive. So we've agreed some realistic KPIs, and the work will be overseen by the parks team. So we have the parks manager and we have a supervisor, And we have a number of people actually that will go out, monitor what they're doing and make sure we're happy with the end result. And if we're not, then the contract will put penalties in there to make sure that they either return to finish what they started if they haven't done it properly. So there's lots of management and supervision in there.
If I could just come back on that, Chair, I'd be grateful. I just wondered why there wasn't just top-line KPIs SLAs in the report. Wouldn't want to, go through every single one, but just so that this committee has assurances, because we've obviously lacked these in the past, various reports and maintenance contracts throughout the whole of Speltham Borough Council. It would have been nice to see that in there. My concern is that we don't have measurement performance records on some of our contracts, and I'd like assurances that this will be incorporated so that members, even going into West Surrey, can be assured that the work is being picked up accordingly. Is that something you could add, please? Or assure us of? I'd be grateful.
Yeah, I can provide you with assurance that those KPIs, again, have been agreed, because we have to agree it with the 3 local authorities. So they're all in the same area. They all want the same assurances. So they are, and we've got the scoring mechanism for at what point we're not happy. So it will all be within the contract documentation.
I appreciate that. I was just wanting to understand what that kind of looked like. Not every single thing, but just to give assurances to the committee that it will be scrutinised, it will be picked up, and that we won't be in the situation that we have been, unfortunately, with some of our reports in the past. That was all. Thank you.
Yeah, so I can assure you that will happen, because we will be getting feedback from the contractors. They'll have to feed back to us. I think it's once every 3 months with information on how they're doing, and obviously percentages have been set at which point we expect them to achieve the standard of work, such as we'll be looking at timescales, whether or not they're actually getting the work done within the timescales, and if not, then we'll have the ability to be able to pull back on them. So there will be KPIs within that contract documentation.
And finally, if I may, Chair, and would there be a report coming to whatever committee in West Surrey at the time, perhaps on a half-yearly basis or whatever, do you know? Or is that not been agreed yet at this stage?
Nothing like that has been agreed at this stage, but I'm sure if the relevant committee in West Surrey wish for that to happen, they can request something.
Okay, but that hasn't been decided by West Surrey at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I just wanted to check what effect, if any, this will have on the issuance and maintenance of tree preservation orders in the borough.
It won't have any effect at all. We are every time we do tree works, we are required to look and see whether or not any of those trees have TPOs on. And actually, in our parks and open spaces, the survey will show a TPO tree. So we know before we instruct any work that that needs to be considered. But also, I think it's fair to say that Speltham Borough Council is deemed to be a responsible landowner. And so there are not many trees on Speltham land that have TPOs on. There are some, definitely, and I can think of one on the Studios estate, which is a very tall tree, that has a TPO on it. So there aren't many, but we're aware of all of them, and they all come out within the tree service that we have, so that we're aware before we undertake any works on them.
Thank you. Councillor Bortflower.
I think it's Councillor Beecher first, Chair.
I just going to ask a similar question. Who assesses TPOs now?
That'll be the tree officer and the planning team.
Thank you, Chair. Jackie, thank you for your report. As ever, fantastic work by the team. Thank you to the team for the ongoing work and commitment they give this borough. It seems a really good value for money for what it is, and I know you mentioned the team itself are into doing that work as well as best as they can with the skills that they've got, and if they're not scared of heights. I think it's a fantastic idea for my colleague, and hopefully that can be fed on to West Surrey at some point. We've got some double or triple hatters here that could carry that forward, I'm sure at their first meetings there or meetings there. But really a big thank you to the team. Thank you for your efforts in doing this paper as well. And it's good that we're sharing the thing across 3 boroughs of trying to get the thing in there so it shows all good measurements and good quality work. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Nichols was next, and then, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. At the start of this year, you very kindly arranged for some tree work to be done in Sunbury Cemetery. That took some time from initial inspection to quote to actually doing the work. Will the existence of this contract shorten that cycle of actually getting work done?
Yes, it should do, because we've actually got that in as one of the performance measurements, the period of time that they allocate to actually getting out there to get this undertaken. And we'll be able to say we want it done within 24 hours, 48 hours or whatever. The thing with things taking a lot more time is sometimes we have to bear in mind that if we say it's urgent and we need it done now, it costs more. If we say that we've got time and it doesn't need to be done straight away, then, and that will be borne out by what the tree survey says. So, you know, it will be done when they've got the resources, and then we usually barter on the price to get it a bit cheaper.
Thank you. Councillor Saliopoulos.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I reiterate my colleague John Bortflower's comments as to you, Jackie, and your department and the people who you work with. Thank you very much. I just wondered, is £65,000 enough money? Thanks.
If you didn't have your own parks team who were able to actually do a lot of that work for you, and they would be the first people we go to say, can you do this? Probably not, but because we can use our own resources, because that's what the council has, we make best use of them, and that was one of the reasons we upskilled them, so that we can actually have a low value in terms of spend, but also a high turnover in terms of the work that we can undertake.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Oh, thank you. Just really quick, same as everyone else, well done. I think it makes sense that we join 3 boroughs together. I definitely think bringing it in-house eventually would be amazing, as many services and things I think should be. Do you know if West Surrey, the other remaining 3 boroughs, are they doing anything similar, or it would be interesting to know if you've got any insight as to going forward, how we kind of see that working? I know when Surrey took over all the grass cutting, it was an absolute disaster. So it would be just good to know if anything similar is being done with the other boroughs. Thank you.
So we did do a bit of work first initially to find out what the others were doing, and they're already contracted because they, some of them contract out their grounds maintenance, so they have their tree works done at the same time, and others have just already decided to take their own tree contracts out without thinking about whether or not you know, they needed to join anywhere else. So the other 3 are already in contracts, either, as I say, with their contractors for grounds maintenance or on their own as a tree contract. But we were all in the same position at the same time, and so it was sensible to move in this direction.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. In my experience of knocking on thousands of doors in the borough, not once has anybody ever has anybody said anything negative about what neighbourhood services done. And I would say, and I said to Jackie after getting elected, I said, you know, you got me elected, thank you very much, I really appreciate that, and I genuinely mean that. I think sometimes it's easy to look good and not be good, and actually I prefer people who are good. And just by keeping a spreadsheet with some numbers on it, you can sort of, you know, make any statistics fit any kind of narrative, whatever you want. I've seen it many times, don't like it. I'd rather people just get on with the job, and I think Jackie does it extremely well. So I'd rather you spend your time doing what you do rather than measuring what you do. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you. I think that's a fairly good discussion of this item. If there are no more questions, can we go to a vote? Does the committee... Does the committee authorise the Group Head Neighbourhood Services to commence a joint open tender procurement exercise with Runnymede Borough Council and Surrey Heath Borough Council for the provision of tree maintenance services for a period of 2 years, with an option to extend for a further 1 year? Does the committee also approve a maximum contract value that does not exceed a total annual budget of £65,000 and in accordance with the appropriate level of delegation as set out in the Spelthorne Borough Council Constitution? And authorise the group head corporate governance to enter contracts and all ancillary documentation with the successful tenderer. Thank you very much. Item 6, Affordable Housing SPD and Climate Change SPD. This item is to consider recommending the adoption of the Spelthorne Affordable Housing Supplementary Planning Document and the updated Climate Change Supplementary Planning Guidance. The report can be found on pages 19 to 254 on the agenda. May I ask Jane Robinson, the Local Plans Infrastructure Manager, to present this report, please?
Thank you. We came to you on the 19th of March to seek approval for permission to consult on the Affordable Housing Supplementary Planning Document and the updated Climate Change Supplementary Planning Document. Permission was granted and we ran a 4-week public consultation on both documents from the 8th of May to the 5th of June. What we're looking for this evening is a recommendation to recommend both documents to Council for adoption. Central Government has set a deadline of the 30th of June for adoption, so it is a very, very tight turnaround, which isn't sort of standard after a public consultation, but we've worked very, very hard to prepare this. We have an extraordinary council penciled in, if it's approved this evening, for the 29th. To seek that approval. Taking them one at a time, the Affordable Housing Supplementary Planning Document was prepared in collaboration with a cross-party member steering group supported by officers and consultants JJB. John and Joe are on Teams tonight. If you have any detailed questions about it, they're both available to answer. The consultation in total received 19 responses, despite a considerable amount of publicity. The first one raised was the complexity of the document, and we should consider measures to make it more understandable, and it has been improved in that way. It is necessarily technical, so that housing developers doing complex negotiations with planners can ensure that the right outcomes are achieved, but we have provided extra detail and clarity. There was questions about viability, and we've retained a paragraph about that to ensure that the SPD is applied positively and pragmatically. We've added 2 new paragraphs on C2 care homes, setting out that if it's a care home providing sort of nursing level care to people just in bedrooms, they're not required to provide affordable housing, but if it's self-contained units, then they are. And there's some updated data on housing delivery and population to bring it up to date. With the Climate Change SPD, it's an update of the document that was adopted in 2024. We received a very similar number of responses, pretty low, overall 16 valid responses from statutory consultees and local residents. A small number of changes have been made as a result of that. For example, County asked us around DNOs, which are distribution operator networks, and they've just included a bit of clarity on there and a small amount of clarity on central government policy on heat networks, for example. Small number of updates, and we're now seeking a recommendation for Council to adopt those before the government deadline.
Okay, thank you very much, Jane. Any questions about these SPDs? Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thank you. This is a question about the affordable housing, and I'm just wondering if the proportions of recommended bedroom size mix that you that the social rent and affordable rent is you know, you've got the highest proportion for the one bedroom, 35 to 40%. And I'm just wondering if that is realistic. Also, on the next page, 49, what they quote as the house prices, I would think that is unrealistic. Only 5,000 for a flat. I know they're considerably more than that. So yeah, is the proportions right for the number, whether we want just one, so many one bedroom rather than bigger ones, and are the house and flat prices correct? Thank you.
Thank you. As we've got the experts, John and Joe, on the line this evening, I will hand over to them to answer that one.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jane. Thank you, Councillor, for the questions there. Both sets of data that you mentioned and the approaches are based on the evidence produced in the HEDNA, the Housing Economic Development Needs Assessment, which has been produced as a separate document by consultants for the council. And also the housing mix approach is based on a previous document, the Strategic Housing Market Assessment, which helped to inform the local plan. And that identified just a marginally higher need for the smaller units, as you mentioned. However, also a significant need for 2 and 3 beds. So although it's 30 to 40% for 1 bed, it's just marginally lower for 2 and 3 beds, both 25 to 30% and 25 to 30% for 3 beds as well, and also a smaller but significant need for 4 beds. So that's arising from the very detailed assessment undertaken to inform the next iteration of the local plan. In terms of the figure you mentioned regarding the cost of apartments, that's also taken from the evidence base in the HEDNA document. And I think it's worth just mentioning that is it's a median figure, and it's based on the latest available information. However, that is about 18 months old. It goes to September 2024. So I think the point you're making, which may well be true, is that there may have been some increases on that if you use absolutely up-to-date data, but that's the latest data that's available, and it's a median. So that's not to say that's the highest, it's the middle within the range. So we would expect both higher and lower figures to be charged for flats. And then as you can see in the table, actually the cost of houses is quite significantly above that, with the overall median figure being 455,000 and the range between detached 677 to 435 for terraces. So I hope that provides some explanation, and I'll pass back to Jane.
Thanks, John. That was very helpful. Answered your question?
Well, I would just say that in my experience, I disagree. Just go and look at an estate agent.
Absolutely, but I mean, the published figures do, vary from different house types, and you've got properties in different levels of condition. Brand new ones do go for a premium, but ones that require doing up are somewhat cheaper. John, did you have another comment on that one?
Well, yes, just to say, I think, Jane, your point there is that particularly set of data is based on the existing stock rather than new builds, and we would expect to see a premium on that, which is normally the case. But yeah, as I say, it's the median figure, so it's just the middle figure in a what could be a quite considerable range, both above and below that. But that part of the document really is just context setting. That won't actually inform necessarily the way in which viability is undertaken, which will be based on a site-specific appraisal of any particular scheme coming forward. So if it is new build, we expect that to see the actual market value included. And if that is higher, then that would show that the scheme potentially could support more affordable housing. So that section is really just for broader context.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hawkins.
I think Councillor Sexton was first.
Sorry, is it Councillor Sexton first? Sorry.
Councillor Hawkins can go first.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, when you talk about the house properties prices, you're not talking about the price that's in the estate agent window. You're talking about the land registry prices, which people can put up an estate agent whatever they want. But ultimately, it's what people are prepared to pay, and that's what's registered at the land registry. And I assume that's the figures that you are going with in your figure.
Yeah, thanks. So again, the figures are taken from the HEDNA, which is a separate assessment, which has just informed this chapter, which is included by way of context. But the main component of the SPD is the sections that follow, which help to provide additional guidance to enable the council to implement its local plan policies, and then guidance on the way that viability testing is undertaken. So, as I say, it's based on the best available up-to-date information. The source, I mean, I think there is a reference to ONS data, but also when undertaking viability testing, as you say, land registry information is typically used as well, which is the recorded price of exchange for the various properties. So this is just for context. It shouldn't have a bearing in terms of the process of negotiating affordable housing or viability testing, but we thought it was useful to have a context section in here drawing on the best available information just to set the scene really and make the case for affordable housing, setting out the considerable need within the borough as reflected in the local plan and its evidence base.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell me how many actual affordable homes has Spelthorne built and has occupied since 2023?
If you just hold on 1 second, I can dig that out of the authority monitoring report. It's one of our figures we report on.
Can we come back to that then? And go to Councillor Sexton and then come back to Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say I'm delighted to see that the SPD now includes the affordable housing that we wanted as part of our strategy and our vision. When we first started the administration in 2023, I'm delighted to see that this has now been, or hopefully is going to be adopted. You certainly have my support on that for sure. In terms of the questions that have been raised by Councillor Grant and Councillor Hawkins, I do tend to agree with them. The pricing that is showing in here, wherever it's coming from, whatever the source that it's coming from, I would say that they are quite somewhat higher than what they are, and I think it needs to be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got another question while... Yes, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions related to commuted sums. They're questions of interpretation, not of challenge to anything that's written here. Paragraph 6.26 says financial contributions will be spent on the provision of affordable housing in Spelthorne. Are we comfortable that we know what Spelthorne means after the 1st of April? And perhaps you could tell us what will happen to existing 106 funds or any contributions that are commitments for contributions which will be paid after the 1st of April. That is the first of my questions.
Sorry, could you repeat that? Was just double checking the affordable housing question. Sorry, I've got a great answer to that now. Sorry, could you repeat that one?
Would you like to do that? It's a bit Ronnie Barker, this, isn't it?
As regards the affordable housing, it's set out in considerable detail in Appendix 1 of the Authority Monitoring Report. No affordable units were completed in the 2024-2025 year. In the previous year, the table is very detailed. It sets out the number of units completed on sites which are fully complete, and also individual units on sites which are not complete. So taking the individual units, the previous year was 43, the one before that was 0, the one before that was 104, and the 2020 to 2021 year had 177. Under construction at the moment is set out in the main body of the report, which was on page 37, and there were estimated to be 200 affordable units under construction, with a further 105 have planning permission but not started, and they're set out on table 12 of the Authority Monitoring Report. Councillor Nichols, could you repeat your question, please? I'm now back with you.
So, Chair, is that question answered? No follow-up? No? Okay, right. Paragraph 6.26 of the affordable housing. I have no idea. It's paragraph 6.26 of the SPD. Says financial contributions will be spent on the provision of affordable housing in Spelthorne. How is Spelthorne interpreted after the 1st of April? What will happen to any 106 funds we currently hold and 106 commitments made, which will be paid after the 1st of April?
I don't think any official decisions have been made on that. So it's a good question whether Section 106 pools will be pooled across West Surrey and decisions made there, or obviously schemes under construction will continue to be built and continue to be delivered. But in terms of the commuted sums, I'm afraid I don't know at this stage. I don't know if Lee or anyone else has anything to add on that one. It's yet to be decided. Laura looks keen to add something.
No, to support what Jane said, it hasn't been decided yet, and it will be a matter for the councillors in West Surrey to deal with that. But these are matters, obviously, as you can appreciate, there's several work streams related to LGR, and matters like this are really important and are in the list of things that need to be considered and decided and a direction sought. But as officers, we're not in a position at this stage, we just don't know to comment, if that's helpful. So, well, not really, I appreciate Councillor Nichols, but...
No, that's fine. It says Spelthorne and we live with that. I can, at least I've asked. If I may ask my second question, which relates to paragraph 0.24 of this SPD, which says paragraph 59 of the MPVF states that where up-to-date policies have been set out, the contributions expected for development, planning applications which reply with them should be assumed to be viable. Paragraph 7.7 says where an applicant considers that a scheme is not capable of providing policy-compliant level of affordable housing, the applicant will be required to submit a viability assessment. It seems to me, I mean, the original intention of this was that you've set out a site, you've set out the criteria, and the expectation is that people will follow with policy-compliant applications. However, paragraph 7.7 says, unless, of course, it's not viable in the end. So how is this going to, in practice, going to be interpreted? Are we going to tell applicants that it's not compliant if it's not contained in that? Are they allowed to turn up with a site in the plan and a viability assessment? Or what's the interpretation we're going to put on this?
I'll kick off with, if a site has been allocated in the local plan, as part of the local plan process, it would be assumed to be viable. they've signed statements of common ground just before the examination hearings saying what they were looking to deliver and, you know, were 100% aware of the policies in the plan and what they would be expected to deliver in terms of affordable housing. So that would certainly be the starting point. Again, the plan is very recently adopted. It is sound, it is up to date. So certainly at this stage, people would very much be expected to adhere to the letter with the policies in it. It's not like you can argue that the world has significantly changed since the plan was adopted, you know, unlike the core strategy. So that would certainly be the start point. I think a point Laura's made before about things in the design code or things is you're better to have a written policy as a backstop position that you can refer back to if the situation arises, rather than potentially having a vacuum of if something, you know, we couldn't have predicted COVID, we couldn't have predicted a significant, so if something does happen, that changes things that we couldn't predict. We've then got a backstop position to refer to. So we're trying to belt and brace here, but the start point would be 100% compliance. Anything to add, John or Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. So paragraph 2.4 within the SPD, as you mentioned, Councillor, refers to the national planning policy framework, so national policy, which says that where up-to-date policies have set out the contributions expected from development planning applications that comply with them should be assumed to be viable. And then it goes on to say it is up to the applicant to demonstrate whether particular circumstances justify the need for a viability assessment at the application stage. So national policy is that the starting point is that schemes should comply with planning policy requirements in the development plan. Where that's the case, then decision makers should treat them as being viable and deliverable. But that still leaves the door open for applicants to demonstrate if there are particular circumstances why they consider why a viability assessment is required at application stage. And then the policy goes on to set out what some of those circumstances might be. So that's the national policy position. And in practice, what happens in terms of applications is that some applicants will bring forward policy compliant schemes and others will seek to reduce their obligations through the viability testing process. And where that's the case, this guidance should assist the council in dealing with those applications, both by very clearly setting out the policy requirements and expectations and how they're likely to be implemented, but also setting out how viability is to be assessed through the planning process by providing some detailed guidance about both the methodology and the various inputs and expectations on applicants to try and ensure that that process is robust as possible and that the maximum viable affordable housing is provided even where a full policy compliant scheme can't be delivered.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The three questions at the back. Councillor Woodward, Councillor Saropoulos, Councillor Walkflower. Who wants to go first?
Chairman, I think you had a point on that, didn't you, or not?
Yeah, I was going to carry on.
I'll let you go then. Thanks, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saropoulos. I get the point of the document, and I'm grateful for the team that have come up with it. Jane, your team, and Laura, second to none. You brought the plan over the line. Really proud of you. I do sort of think we're in this end game. We're going to be in West Surrey. You've got a cabinet there. I'm sure it is on their list of actions, and the officers there, to get a more centralised edition of this for all of the boroughs into West Surrey. I don't know how much legs it's got for what it's worth, and I think we could end up taking something to the table at West Surrey where it doesn't hit the mix and we might have caused a delay or an issue to it. So I would not want to cause problems in West Surrey of getting the centralised one done. I also think that any scheme in my days sitting on planning, probably changed slightly now, but anything that come there, the biggest discussion point by the planning committee was the affordable housing part and the money going into the 106 monies and this imaginary big bucket of money of what can we do with it. and how many of these schemes actually do at the end deliver the affordable it promised to. And we can tell, and I think Councillor Howkins asked a really relevant question, how many we had? None. So nothing has, it's stalemate. We've done a lot before. I think for yourselves, this is an important document to have as a backstop, but I don't know how many of the local plan sites are going to pass and be dealt with by the time we finish. And I think that's the biggest question for me. Is there going to be a rush on because we haven't got this, or a rush on because we have got it, and there's wind down the road? Once it hits West Surrey, it's going to be in a different format. I think the West Surrey part for me is probably the most important part of passing something now, or recommending it to full council, when actually by the time it gets to full council and then hits the streets, that West Surrey have had a provisional meeting to discuss what they're going to do on this factor. And I hate to see a car crash there. Obviously thinking about Spilthorne residents and also the developments, they've got to be right for Spilthorne, although that loses, watered down slightly. So there's a few factors there, Jane, to be honest, which just bring me a bit of uncertainty of where it's going. And great paper, brilliant work, can't thank you enough, but there's just a few questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bourne-Flower. I think there's sort of a couple of things there. One, having only adopted the plan at the end of March, you know, it did allocate sites in the Green Belt, and we would expect them to come forward. Our DM team have had the phone ringing a lot with pre-apps and people looking to bring things forward. You know, you and me both know it was a long old road, and now those sites are out of the Green Belt and ripe for development. I actually, in the next 9 months, can see quite a lot coming forward, and hopefully getting over the line and getting their planning, full planning permission, because there's allocated sites, they've got status, but equally, you know, long level negotiations coming through, so expectations will be clearly set out. So I do think it's important. The other thing is, of course, come 1st of April, you know, we're not, this is kind of going to be covered in the next one, so that the spoiler alert with the, you know, we don't yet know. We met up with MHCLG. They had a East Surrey meeting and a West Surrey meeting with planning people to say, we're working on transitional arrangements. We don't have a plan yet, but we're working on it. But if a planning application is decided on the 1st of April, the most up-to-date development plan is still going to be the Spelthorne local plan for this piece of soil. The most up-to-date affordable housing SPD is still going to be this one if it is adopted. So although Spelthorne won't exist anymore, people will carry on determining planning applications the day after and the day after, and they will still refer back to these documents as the most recent and the most appropriate. So it will have value. It's going to take some time, even if work started on the 1st of April, to produce a West Surrey local plan, whatever that will look like. It's going to take time. We hope not quite as long, but you know, it's going to take time. So the policy and the local plan and the SPDs are still going to be live until the point they're replaced. But also, we have a saying in planning policy, there's no point reinventing the wheel. So when we get together, if we're going, well, actually, our new affordable housing SPD was adopted on, you know, the 29th of June, right, brilliant. Can we copy paste and update, use 95% of this, and then do a West Surrey one as soon as possible? You know, so that there are always options. And even, you know, I don't know where we are, but you might be able to say we're 2 metres over the borough in Runnymede, and that one's quite up to date, so maybe, you know, it could carry some weight. So, you know, it's a whole new world, but I don't think they're all going to, you know, die a death on the 31st. So, worth it.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Saliopoulos.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the report. Mine is on page 28, where the key issues for respondents, yeah? And in particular, the respondent, it says responses have articulated that the SPD, and it talks about clarifying the C2 use class and the self-contained units. such as nursing and care homes. However, some care homes do have what we call accommodation which is ancillary to the care home, and they do have a little self-contained flat in the grounds, but they still have redress to the main care home. So will you be looking at each? Because if I'm thinking about the other parts of West Surrey, if we're getting involved in this, some of them do have substantial grounds that have these separate huge annex, well not huge, but you're nodding your head, so I assume you know what I'm talking about there, don't you? So it's interesting that someone's brought that up in a response, isn't it? Or did you guys come up with it? Thank you, Chairman.
I can't honestly remember off the top of my head where it did come up in the consultation, but again, our development management officers have as well, they've engaged in this matter as well, because people are very, very keen, always keen, that we maximise delivery of affordable housing, so we have that level of clarity. It did get quite technical in my mind, and with if you've got a nursing home, as we would know it, with bedrooms, then they don't have to deliver. Self-contained units do. I would assume a pragmatic, if you've got a half and half system, and maybe if you're delivering 20 self-contained units, we would require a percentage of those to deliver the affordable housing, but not count the bedroom-only ones. I would suggest, John and Joe, you have been discussed this in quite a lot of detail, haven't you? So I'll hand over to you for additional technical input.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. That's exactly what the SPD does. So paragraph 4.51 deals with a situation where there's a mix of self-contained and non-self-contained accommodation, saying that that will be considered on a case-by-case basis, with affordable housing requirements being applied to the self-contained residential component. So hopefully that provides clarity where you have a mix of different types of C2 use, so that if it is appropriate to seek a contribution on a proportion of that development, then the SPD sets out a framework for that.
Thank you. Councillor Wolford.
Thank you, Chair. On Monday at the councillors' briefing, the CEO mentioned that planning was going to have a major change in October, with restrictions on the abilities of councils to make decisions about the planning in their area, and a lot of these decisions being centralised under our current Labour government. My reading of that is that things like this will be overridden, and I'm just wondering what the value of this going forward beyond October is, and if you guys have got any view on that.
Thank you, Councillor. So the situation is the National Scheme of Delegation came into force and it will come into play on the 31st of October. Now, I haven't had a chance, that will mainly be dealt with through our development management team, so I haven't reviewed it in deep detail and don't want to mislead you on anything. But what the National Scheme of Delegation does is it doesn't centralise the decisions. Decisions will still be made against our policies and our plans. What the National Scheme of Delegation does is change which schemes which applications are decided by planning committee and which are decided by under delegated authority by officers in accordance with the policy. So in fact, this engagement with the local plan process and making sure that the policies we adopt are right and do what we want is even more important, because it's those policies that the officers will use their technical expertise to judge if a planning application is acceptable or not. So it's not that the decisions will be made by somebody else, but they'll be made against our policies, but less will go to committee. Is the very high level, there'll be much more of this coming your guys' way, but that's the high level flyover of what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Many thanks. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. First, I'd like to congratulate Jane. I thought she was about to start a Two Ronnie sketch of Mastermind, where you answer the question after. And I thought that was amazingly well done. Congratulations. So I also believe that perfection should never be the enemy of the good, and it's better to do something than just show activity and achieve nothing. You know, so it's important actually just to get it out there. You can always refine a document, you can refine a plan. It doesn't matter. You spend your time, get it out there, publish it, and then refine it and then republish it. No problems at all with that. So, although I think social housing, council housing, state housing, whatever else. I think post-war it's probably quite good. Lots of people, it was a useful stepping stone onwards. Obviously that's now reduced, but I don't think the theory that people have got has really reduced, in all honesty. I think council waiting lists are too long and too high, and I think they're almost unachievable. And I think what this SPD does, of course it's great work, but I think it bakes in too much ability to be kind of on the list, if you like, where if you're earning a certain amount of money, you can still be considered, you can still be on the list in order to get there. I would reduce the actual amount that people should be able to actually get on the list in order just to be honest to people, to say, actually, you know what, you're earning too much, you're in the private sector, so that whatever social housing can actually be focused on the people who genuinely need it. And if people need to move, they need to move to places where they can afford it. Also, the ability to purchase houses afterwards. There's a figure set of £80,000. I think that's extremely high. So I think it should be more for the needy and less for the all. It feels like a bit of a mattress. So I think being a bit more sort of robust and a bit more stringent with it, I think it will make life easier for everybody. The final point that I'd like to bring about is that the government has no money, as in, like, even when they feel rich, the government has no money, the council has no money. We have money. It is taxpayers' money. And I think the proof in the pudding of how taxpayers' money is spent is what people think on the street, whether they feel that something is too generous or whether they feel it's about right. So investing success, and certainly the feedback that I get when it comes to this type of area is it's too generous in certain areas and not generous enough when it comes to homeless people, etc. Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I think we now have to decide whether we're going to recommend this to council. Is there one more question, Councillor Hopkins?
Just a quick one. On page 131, there's a paragraph about race, including gypsies, travellers and asylum seekers. Can we turn around and have it that something is in place so that we don't end up as the dumping ground? Yeah. And that going forward, we know how Spelthorne has ended up with things that we don't want, and that we could end up with a disproportionate amount of these sites to what we should have if we haven't got something in place. It's just a thought.
Possibly that's the Equalities Impact Assessment that we do for all documents that you're referring to, that itself is standardised, and we do a quick assessment of documents against the impact it will have on certain groups, and otherwise, other than that, the issue is sort of beyond the scope of planning.
Thank you. Just one more. Councillor Barrow.
This is just on the climate change SPD, page 229. It was mentioned in the consultation that I might have missed the answer, but it was talking about a request for stronger focus on groundwater, river and surface flooding in the climate change SPD. Was that covered?
So the Climate Change SPD update just updates the parts of the document so it's in conformity with the new local plan as opposed to being in conformity with the previous core strategy. What we did say on that is that's going to be covered elsewhere in our flooding guidance and groundwater technical guidance. So although many of our documents cross-reference each other, a bit like the policies in the local plan cross-reference each other, I think we'd have been there a long time and not managed to hit this 30th of June deadline if it went beyond the scope.
Yeah, it's just that it came up as a question that was repeated about it.
People have got quite a strong interest in groundwater in the borough, and it sort of tends to come up related to lots of different topics, but we're on the case with groundwater.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. So we come to the decision. Does the committee agree to recommend to council that they agree the adoption of, number one, the Spelthorne Affordable Housing Supplementary Planning Document, and number two, the updated Climate Change Supplementary Planning Guidance, SPD, under the Regulation 14 of the Town and Country Planning, brackets, local planning, Regulations 2012. Thank you very much. As
Chair,
that's agreed,
Sorry, Chair. I wanted just to ask something, if I may, very quickly. I did have my hand up, but that's okay. I did come back in. But I agreed with that if that's gone through. If I've interjected, I apologise. If that's completed, then may I ask my question very quickly? All it was you spoke about the groundwater flooding. I wondered when Dr. Paul is going to come back into this chamber, please, to give us an update as to where he's at, or if indeed if one of you ladies could very kindly give us an update in terms of where you know he's up to and where he's at, because I believe he's got further funding.
I haven't had an update from him in the last month or so regarding where he is, so I wouldn't want to give you an incorrect update this evening. I don't know. I guess it would be for an invitation to be issued to him and a suitable date found. So I'll have a chat to committee services and see what can be done on that one.
I was going to ask you if you could reach out to him, and if we could then get feedback at the next ENS meeting so that he can come in and see us as soon as possible. I'd be most grateful. Thank you, if that's okay with the committee and yourself, Chair. Thank you.
thank you, Councillor Sexton. That sounds perfectly good idea to me. Right. So having agreed, this will now be considered at an extraordinary council meeting scheduled for the 29th of June 2026. Can I say thanks again to Joseph and John and the team for that really detailed and thorough document, which you and some of us have also been working on for the last few weeks. Thank you. We move on excuse me, to item 7. This is the local plan immediate review, Gateway 1. This item is for the committee to consider the commencement of the immediate review of the Spelthorne local plan in accordance with the requirements of the new plan making system. The report can be found on pages 211 to 230 of the agenda. May I ask Jane Robinson again, Local Plans and Infrastructure Manager, and Laura Waters, Principal Planning Officer for Policy, to present this report. Laura's attending remotely.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. The inspector's report, which we received on the local plan, required the council to undertake an immediate review and submit this within 2 years of adoption. So that will take us to March 2028, as secured by the insertion of policy ST3, local plan immediate review. The council received a letter from MHCLG on the 15th of January. I put a couple of... Thank you. We received a letter from MHCLG on the 15th of January. There's a summary of the very key point in the reason for recommendation, and the key paragraph is set out in para 2.4 of the report. It stated, I'm writing to you as your local authority submitted a plan for examination on or before the 12th of March 2025, and the housing requirement in the plan was meeting less than 80% of the local need calculated during the standard method. You will, therefore, be required to start a local plan early in the new plan-making system, publishing your notice to commence plan preparation by the 30th of June 2026, and publishing your Gateway 1 self-assessment by the 31st of October 2026. The full letter is set out in Appendix E. They also offered funding in that letter and did provide funding of just over £108,000 to around 100 local authorities, including ours, to support the accelerated, speedy, the continuation of plan making. I use the term Gateway 1 self-assessment. Now, that's not language we've talked about before in E&S committee. You will all be familiar with our previous issues and options consultation, our preferred option, and our pre-submission consultation. That's the language we've all been using for years. And the government has introduced a new plan-making system on the 25th of March, which includes a mandatory sequence of actions, including going through gateways. And once you're through the gateway, the idea is you can't go backwards, and you'd sort of check in with central government or planning inspectorate at your different gateways. So this is the language, and we request the publication of a, quote, notice of intention to commence plan making. It's just simply a notice that says we're going to start making a local plan. And then there's talk again of a scoping consultation that we're looking to start pretty soonish. If we get approval this evening, we're looking to start that on Monday. Before you ask, so I'll preempt that one, what's everybody else in West Surrey doing? We're more or less all in the same boat. Surrey Heath are dragging their other plan, current plan, over the line. They're out to main mods at the moment, which finishes on the 9th of July. But everybody else, Guildford, yes, doing this as well, but Guildford have published their notice of intention to commence plan making on the 5th of June, Woking the 22nd of May, Runnymede are poised for the 29th to hit the deadline, and Waverley published on the 11th of June. So we will all be in a similar position. I haven't got a crystal ball, but my guess would be that this is working out very, very well for central government. They'll let us all run through to Gateway 1 in October, and then either let us continue or converge us at that point for Gateway 2. It waits to be seen, but doing this, seeking agreement for this, will keep us in line with the other 5 West Surrey authorities. It is always up to the committee what is decided this evening, but officers recommend that we do meet these deadlines and commence plan making. One immediate consequence of either delaying or not doing would be the refund of the £108,000 we have received. Another one is that just this week the government has come in and de-designated some local authorities, effectively more or less taken away their DM powers of 10. This happened on Monday: Cherwell, Dacorum, Epping, Hertsmere, Malvern, Rossendale, Tyneside, Staffordshire, and so on. Intervention is on the cards, so they are very, very keen to see people do this. And the language in their letter was, you will be required. So that is where we are with it. Apologies for my nine recommendations. The first 4 sort of come as a block, looking at commencing the immediate review, publishing the timetable, publishing this statutory notice of intention, and starting a scoping consultation. We have got a full member briefing in the diary for July to talk to you all about the scoping, but it's a very high level. What kind of things should we include in our plan? And the next requests come looking at the task group, and who will be on that can be taken as a separate block. So a lot of appendices with the report there, but we've set out the timetable, we've set out letters, we've shown you what the notice will look like. So that is where we are this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. It's really, really detailed summary of what we've got to do. There are some questions, though. I think Councillor Sexton was first.
Thank you, Jane. You answered one of my questions in terms of members having a briefing. May I ask you, please, to make sure that that is done in layman's terms, in terms of how many gateways that there are, what the timelines are, and specifically kind of what numbers that we're looking at, and when we're meant to complete these gateways, because it's really key critical that members understand exactly what is expected from us, from the government, and we need to make sure that we clearly communicate that to the residents so that they know what is being put in front of us, because obviously we've only just got the local plan through, which was indeed on the old numbers, which is obviously what they've made reference to. However, we have many issues within this borough, one being water, two being, and when I mean water, I'm talking reservoirs, so we don't have as much land as some. And obviously we have been really pragmatic in terms of what greenbelt that we could release without it having an adverse impact on communities. And what we don't want to do is to be in a position, because of this government, where we end up with nothing but concrete jungles around the area that we live. And it's imperative that at that meeting that everybody understands exactly what is being expected of us from this government, because residents need to know this. Thank you.
Thank you. I will definitely take that on board and ensure the briefing is in layman's terms. Just for clarity, the briefing is set for 6 p.m. on the 14th of July, and the invitation has been sent to all members. It will be in person, but we can do a Teams link if that's helpful as well.
Can you tell me when that was sent out, please?
I can't provide you with an exact date off the
Okay,
top
but
of
it's
my
the
head, but a
14th.
couple of weeks ago.
Okay, I'll double check my diary. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. I don't know if it's a well-known saying, but there's a saying that goes, you can't fight the white, you know. When it comes out on a piece of white paper, that's it. You've got your orders, you might as well crack on with it. All I've seen for the 3 years that I've been here is people try and fight the white, and we always end up in a worse position. So get on with it ASAP. And you need to go upstream in order to try and change the outcomes of what's being done. When you're told to absolutely get on and do something, get on and do it. I know Jane and Laura will absolutely do it, and they're brilliant operators. So please, ASAP, just get on with it. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair. Jane, thank you for that. Wow, that's all I can say. And I hope some of that 108,000 has been invested in probably aspirin and headache tablets that you're sure you're going to need. I'm pleased it's happening while we're still existing to start it, and that's really pleasing. And I look forward to the task group and the details of the task group, making sure that is proportionate to what we have in the chamber. I think it brings a lot of headaches, but I think one of the things you did mention, what a great team building experience for West Surrey, for all the planners and the skill base, so everybody will be on the same level with us, obviously with the plan in place. But I do feel on some of the bits of it, obviously that delay, you know, it's come back to bite us, and this is where we're at. But the last thing we do not want is for the government to take over. And I'm sure that everybody in this chamber and everybody on the briefing, or those that can't get to the briefing, will be aware that this is too risky. This is extremely risky with the locations you just mentioned. I'm quite shocked. But if that's what's happening, we need to really make sure this is ring-fenced and kept safe and delivered at the due time before we close down. So happy to help in any way. And one of the things on the briefing, if people are away, will there be a recording available for those to watch? It is the peak of sort of holidays coming up. If that could be arranged or something after, that'd be grateful. But thank you for all the efforts you've made on the local plan. Now you've got to start again painting the Forth Bridge. I just wish there was a little bit of respite for you all, because you've done such a brilliant, brilliant job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you for your suggestion of recording. We will do that. I think that's a good idea.
Councillor Hawkins.
Oh well, off we go and start again. You turn around, you worked so hard, and it was so ridiculous the way it all got scuppered for what could have been sorted out in the planning stages. I hope to God we don't turn around and go through this again, and that everybody helps you and works with you towards getting to the milestone dates, so we don't end up with further problems down the line like we've now got. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you. I think Councillor Grant was next.
Thank you. What is concerning me is we're going to have another task group. This is Appendix F, page 363. Now, according to this, the membership is the chair and vice chair of this committee, and one ward councillor from each of the 13 wards. Political proportionality does not apply. So how are we going to choose fairly? After all, I mean, several wards have councillors from different political groups. So how can we fairly choose one from each ward, particularly if more than one wants to be on there?
As a first response, although the terms are almost identical to the previous... Thanks. The membership and responsibilities are an almost exact copy-paste of the two previous times they were approved. Political proportionality doesn't apply, and it hasn't done previously. However, it is to be a cross-party task group, and members do not necessarily need to be drawn from the E&S committee. What we have talked about as a first sift is that we ask for volunteers from each ward to put themselves forward. And then there are, if we get more than one volunteer for each ward, there are different options of how that could be addressed. For example, we could talk to the political leaders of each of the parties and talk to them about what, you know, and seek an agreement that way across and work down, and you know, or there are, you know, different options with the chief exec, with the chair and vice chair can talk about it. And I think you know, legal said there's something in the depths of the books about if people really can't agree, if there are options of what could happen then. We would hope that in the first instance we could work it out, as we've had a task group before, and it's worked out. It's sort of, you know, hopefully something that members can agree amongst themselves.
Thank you. I'll take another question first. Is there going to be a comment from here? Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to refer to the Constitution, where there is a provision, if we're unable to come to a conclusion, it's just the same as how you would elect the chair, that there is a committee decision on that.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
Yeah, just a couple of points again on Appendix F. I'm really not happy with this. I don't think the task group that worked on the previous plan did a good job. They basically ended up ganging up on Staines and attempting to deliver an unsound plan that simply even the inspector rejected because we had no agreement from the Environment Agency. So that's a nonsense to suggest that this works well. Personally, I'm really not happy. I think, as Councillor Grant said, I'm really not happy with the idea that we ditch this idea of political proportionality. I'm also not happy at the idea that we simply have one councillor from each ward, because what happened in the past, we had 3 Staines councillors out of 13, and they got ganged up on. Basically, that's the reality. And the final thing I'm really not happy with is the idea that you can't have any substitutions. Why on earth would that be the case? So in principle, yes, I think we crack on, but I don't think we should make the mistakes of the past.
To kick off a first response of that the local plan task group has always been a discussion group and not a decision-making group. It made recommendations up to the E&S committee, but it never took decisions. It discussed the matters. the terms allow for up to 15 members to be on the task group, which is 40-ish, over 40% of the 39 elected members, so it is a generous proportion. The members don't have to be taken from the ENS pool, so considering, you know, ENS, there's quite a few people sitting on that, and then it could be different ones engaged in the task group, so which then could potentially cover quite a large number of the members of different political parties. Our commitment to the all-member briefing that's in your diaries already shows that that is something the team do and very much welcome, and is something we will continue to seek to do, to engage everybody in the process through things like that. So even if people aren't on a task group, they can regularly be engaged, and things like Teams and recordings help to engage people who, even if they can't make a specific occasion. So we are very much looking to be holistic and inclusive.
Any more points? Councillor Hawkins?
I think that turning round and having the chair and vice chair and then 13 ward councillors is perfectly acceptable. Surely between the three of each of the ward councillors, they can turn around and have a discussion and go, you're best suited, you're not, and then run it through the leader or that. Because turning around and making a big thing about it, we're 13 different areas with 13 different things. So you want one person there representing each ward to turn around and help you to move you forward to West Surrey.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. Jane, just a point of clarity. When the local plan was being discussed in 2023, did the inspector actually reject it?
The inspector didn't make a decision on the local plan until he issued his report in March 2026.
Thank you. I thought so. So therefore, I think that what Councillor Williams said was incorrect, and I think it should be struck from the record. Chair.
That's not true. At the very first hearing, he questioned why there was no statement of common ground with the Environment Agency. That's the fact. And there still wasn't. There wasn't until we changed it. It took about 2 years to get to a statement of common ground with the Environment Agency. That's the fact. So stop peddling this nonsense.
Okay, I think we need to draw a line there under what is his history. We need to really decide whether we're going to agree on these points. Are there any more questions about the actual issues here? Councillor Hawkflower.
I just wanted to put for consideration really about the task group is that although we finish next year, 9 months to go, if you take off a bit of summer and the rest of it, probably a bit less, is that the key players become those in West Surrey. And maybe we should look at those that got elected in this chamber to be part of that committee, i.e. representing the ward they're going to be in, because they will carry it forward. And I do fear we're probably this. I get the committee set up because we've had that and it's worked brilliantly. But now because we are closing, maybe it's just a suggestion of we need to make sure we have some continuation, continuation there, moving into West Surrey, where the work carries on for Jane and team, but there's people that are well aware of what's been going on. I do fear we have to start again because if those that were elected have not been chosen for whatever sake, it's a restart for the officers to start again, being a bit thinking about the officers and the members, because there is that process of moving it over, the continuity, and I do worry about having sort of one from each ward, and I get that, and I'm sure mixed wards can decide on somebody to champion their ward, but there might be some positivity in that. Maybe some of the unitary members are selected. Don't know, just a thought. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And final point from Councillor Sexton.
Just to follow on from what Councillor Bortflower, the idea I have, Chair, is that we choose one because there are some obviously West Surrey County Councillors that aren't ward councillors currently. So my recommendation would be that you choose one from each of the new West Surrey councillors for each of the divisions, which would give us 7. And then with the ward councillors, that it's fairly proportionately put together so that we could actually pick a ward councillor from the Staines area, like the division, to make it 14, and then we obviously need an extra one, if that makes sense. Yeah?
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Can I just come in on that, Councillor Sexton? We can only choose councillors that are Spelthorne Borough Council councillors and not West Surrey councillors that are not part of this.
The point I'm making is that there are West Surrey County councillors that have been elected that are ward councillors also, right? So, for instance, to make it very clear, for the Ashford division, okay, I am a ward councillor, I'm a Surrey County councillor and a West Surrey County councillor. So what I'm saying, for the Ashford division, that's broken up into Ashford, yeah, town, Ashford, I think it's Ashford, Staines, Ashford, so on. So you break it down, because there's 39 councillors, and there are how many wards? 13 wards. You with me? Yeah? Okay, so you take...
Yeah. I just wanted the clarity that it's just those that are Spelthorne
and
councillors.
That's the point I'm trying to get at, is that you pick at least, you have to have one person, yeah, that's going to take that forward to West Surrey. So if they've been elected as a ward councillor and also a West Surrey councillor, that person needs to be on it for that area, whether it be Ashford, whether it be Staines, whether it be Shepperton. It needs to be one. So, for instance, to make it very clear, Maureen Attewell is a ward councillor, yeah, for Shepperton, and she's also been elected for West Surrey. So she should be on it for Shepperton. But there are other ward councillors within that, such as John Bortflower and also, obviously, Lisa, Councillor Brennan, yeah? And then there are some others that within that division will cross over on other areas, yeah? So one should be chosen from there. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Yes, my point was just making sure they are Spelthorne councillors. So that's, but thank you, you've clarified that.
That's what I was in. Sorry if I didn't make that clear, but thank you for clarifying it. Yes.
Right. Just one
very quickly. Thank you, Chair. Yes. Maybe it's worth the Chair, Vice Chair meeting to discuss the opportunities for what's the best for that, I believe. I do think there needs to be some mix of that, but I only put it as a just in the air. But I take Councillor Sexton's point as well. But I think it's it can get quite complicated. Thank you.
I think we just have to agree that we're going to convene a local task plan group and that the details can be worked out a little bit later on. Yeah. So can we draw a line then and see whether they're going to recommend this to council? I'll read out the first 4 points in one go. Hopefully we can approve all these. So does the committee agree to approve the commencement of the immediate review of the Spelthorne local plan in accordance with policy ST3 and the Town and Country Planning, Local Planning, England, Regulations 2026? Number 2, does the committee approve publication of the local plan immediate review timetable in accordance with the requirements of the new plan making system? Number 3, approve the publication of the statutory notice of intention to commence plan making, to formally commence plan making and meet the government's local plan implementation funding requirements. And number 4, approve the undertaking of a statutory scoping consultation in accordance with Regulation 20 of the Town and Country Planning, brackets, Local Planning, England, Regulations 2026.
Chair, sorry, can we just say subject to, obviously, this being, the proportionality being agreed?
Well, I can only read out what I've got here. There's none more to come.
Well, as long as it happens, that's all. Yeah? I just need assurances that it's going to happen. I don't want it left.
Another 5 points to read out. Are we agreed on those first 4, to approve those 4? Agreed. Right, thank you. Number 5, it is to delegate authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Environment and Sustainability Committee to make any necessary updates to the local plan timetable as required by the new regulations, brackets, monthly review. Any minor amendments to the scoping consultation and as required by the new regulations, to self-publish the required Gateway 1 documentation. Do we agree that? Agreed, thank you. Number 6. This is to note that decisions 1 to 4 fulfil the requirement of the inspector's report, which requires a review of the local plan immediately and an updated or replacement plan to be submitted for examinations no later than 2 years from the date of adoption of the local plan. And note that decisions 1 to 4 fulfil the requirement of the letter from the MHCLG dated 15th of January 2026. And second note, to note that the implications of local government reorganisation and the importance of progressing the immediate review at pace to ensure continuity through the transition to the West Surrey Authority. Do you note those 2 points? Thank you. And
so we can add in and review proportionality at the end.
I'll review, right, okay. And number 8, agree to reconvene a local plan task group and agree the composition of the local plan task group membership and terms of reference and review proportionality. So, agreed. Finally, to delegate authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of this committee to agree the names of those ward members of the local plan task group. Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. To move on to item 8, you okay with that? Did anybody want to come for break? Okay, great. Carry on. There's not much left, I don't think. Number 8 is the transitional corporate plan. This item is for the committee to consider the proposed council transitional plan and provide comments on any areas relevant to the committee's remit. May I ask Lee O'Neill, Deputy Chief Executive, to present this report?
Thank you, Chair. A proposed council transitional plan was endorsed by the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee on the 26th of May for consultation with service committees of the council. So we're therefore seeking any comments the committee may have this evening on the planned actions in that plan, so that we can report this back to Corporate Policy and Resources Committee and then full council. By way of some background, the council has delivered a lot under its corporate plan, and that was a plan that was run from 2024 to 2028. That was how it was designed to work, to be a 5-year plan, and we had some short, medium and long-term actions under that plan. Unfortunately, however, due to a range of significant constraints, including not least local government reorganisation, it's no longer feasible to deliver that full programme of activity that was under that existing plan. So the proposed transitional plans is designed to provide a clear and focused framework for the council's final phase as an independent authority, enabling us to continue to deliver services for residents and support for staff, whilst also putting the council in a position to play an active role in shaping a financially sustainable and resilient West Surrey Unitary Authority. It's built around a defined set of deliverable actions, and we've kept these aligned to the original CARES corporate priorities, but refined this to reflect the current operating context that we're working under and the ongoing need to provide statutory and discretionary services. Overall, the plan it aims to ensure that Spelthorne will leave a stable, well-managed and sustainable legacy, supporting the smooth transition into this new unitary authority. The actions outlined in the transitional plan are attached with your papers, and the suggested areas of focus for this committee are highlighted in yellow on those slides. And a full copy of the CPRC report and appendices can be found with the links that have been provided. All the actions outlined in the transitional plan are designed to be deliverable within existing budgets and resources. And as the budget for 2026 to 27 has already been set by the council, any new actions that may be suggested by this committee or any other committee is going to have to be accommodated within existing current financial and staffing resources. Members are therefore asked to identify how any new proposals they may suggest would be funded, for example, through reprioritisation of existing work or the use of available grant funding. And then feedback, as I said earlier, from the service committees will then be used to refine the transitional plan prior to reporting this back to Corporate Policy and Resources Committee on the 13th of July, and then a report on to full council. I'll leave it there, Chair, but happy to take any questions, comments, and seek any views from members. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Are there any questions? Councillor Sexton.
Thank you, Chair. When this was brought forward, I can't remember, I think you spoke about this at last committee, I can't remember what committee it was. Yes, 22nd of May, that's right. Item 3 was not highlighted in yellow at that point, and there was a discussion that was had in this chamber to say that we will be moving, obviously, to West Surrey as of the 1st of April, and with that there will be ways of reporting things going forward that would be collaboratively across West Surrey, that will be focusing, going through one sort of process. I think that we will be confusing residents if we continue with this report it, because the way in which Surrey County Council does it in a very different way to what we do it, and I just think it would just further make things more complicated for residents, because it's hard enough as it is in terms of them asking regularly on Facebook as to how to report anything. So I wouldn't want us to waste our money on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's great to see all the community, a lot of it being highlighted. I think that's really important. The Love Where You Live campaign, perhaps it's not needed so much now because we're out of the election period. But just on the, I just want to check for point 2, in terms of the list, is that like an exclusive list, or can other things be included in that point? Because obviously there's the mugger in there, which I'm hoping, obviously the consultation's coming to an end. I had another question on that actually, but just, is that a kind of exclusive list, or will other things, can other things be added to it if they come to the table?
The situation is councillors can suggest other things, but these are things that are already factored into the budget in terms of what we're going to deliver in this year. So those budgets are already set aside for those. All sources of funding for those things are already set aside. So if there's anything else councillors feel that is missing, they can by all means suggest it, but then we'd have to go back, obviously, take that back to Corporate Policies and Resources Committee with a suggestion as to how that's going to be funded within existing resources. So as I say, it could be stopping doing something and doing something else, or it could be there's some grant funding that we know is available that we could put towards that. You know, it just has to be something that we can cover financially and with the staffing resources we've got.
Okay, so for example, if the MUGA didn't go ahead, that SEAL funding could technically go into something else, and that is a possibility, because that's, I mean, we've discussed it within the master plan, but obviously I understand we can't necessarily legally ring fence it, but if we were to put it into something else, that SEAL funding would still be available.
That we might understand that potentially could be, yeah, just go back. Yeah, go back in the pot and then be considered by the relevant working groups, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And my other question that's came up in a resident association meeting was, will the MUGA consultation results be publicised, or in what way will they be kind of communicated to councillors and to the public?
Yeah, when the council carries out public consultation, it always publicises the responses, at the outcome, basically, of that consultation. So it will be very, very publicly available.
Just the outcome, or the actual responses, like how many and how, yes, like specific ones?
Yeah,
okay, so
it'll be very, very detailed, because you know, we go out to consultation so that people can give their views, and other people need to understand what the majority views are when we do such a thing. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Jackie. Cheers, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Portfire? Oh, so I thought you saw a hand up. Councillor Sexton.
Thank you. Just for clarification, further to Councillor Barker's comments, please be aware that Love Where You Live actually was done with the group administration leaders. That included Councillor Bateson, Councillor Button, okay? Just for clarification. Secondly, in regards to the MUGA, my understanding is that anyone from Northampton to Timbuktu could respond to that survey with no postcode, no belonging of this area, and we wouldn't know who has responded. Can I have clarity on that, please? Thank you.
That's correct. At the end of the day, it's a public consultation. It wasn't ring-fenced to Spelthorne, but the restrictions are that you can't get one person responding 20 or 30 times to the same thing. So, because it's based on an IRP address. I'm not an IT person, but that's what I've been advised. But no, it was not ring-fenced because that restricts people who may, come from Spelthorne, come to Spelthorne for regular things, but also it's probably unlikely that people that far afield will be responding, but it's still a public consultation and anybody has the right to respond.
Understand that, but we're not asking for postcodes.
No, we're not asking.
Okay. And finally, Chair, if I may, in regards to all of these highlighted areas, I do understand the budgetary constraints, absolutely, and I understand why this report has come to us with the recommendations. But other than item 3, I'm absolutely comfortable with. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Portflower was slightly before.
Thank you, I do. Thank you, Chair. Lee, you mentioned there, and thanks for the report, is that obviously budgets have been set aside, but I don't think you sort of mentioned that things can be removed and that budget becomes free or not spent. So I think there's always a good chance for the committee to go through some of these items, to say, really, do we really need this now with where we're going at the end of our close down? I think it's interesting seeing the mugger on there because there's a deliverable, because it's not decided. It's a potential, I'm very clear on why I stand on it. I think it's the wrong thing for a memorial garden, but I think some of these probably as members we need to look at again to see if they fit the flavour of where we're going. But it's a good list, nice clear list. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams?
Yeah, if I may, just 2 quick points. This is very specific on the environment. Point 3, plant 70 new trees. Why? This presumably came from somewhere, but why 70 and not 80 or 100 or 10 or 20? Where did that number come from? That's the first question.
It's a very good question, actually. But no, it's because we have a roving. What we do is we created our own tree nursery in the nursery down at Laleham, and what we've done is we've assumed how many trees will be ready for planting in the winter of this year. So basically, this obviously only covers 1 year, and that's where we get that amount from. I mean, we could have said 70, we could have said 80, and the person that counted all of those trees that will be available decided to be very precise.
Okay, just a bit of mischief making then. Can we please ensure that proportionally Staines gets its fair share of these new trees? I have a more serious second point, if I may. Not the first one was totally frivolous, but the second one is item 1 says, it mentions the River Thames scheme, but there's no mention in here about doing anything about the groundwater flood risk, which is a real issue for my residents. And I wouldn't want all our discussions with Dr. Paul and all the work we've done on the local plan for that suddenly to just kind of drop off the agenda and have us just focus on river flooding.
I mean, Jane or Laura might want to comment on this, but obviously what we're saying is we can do things within budget. I mean, we have got plans for what we're doing with groundwater, so it's work underway. There's lots of other business as usual stuff that we're doing that is not listed on here anyway. But I mean, if it's something that we're already doing that you want particularly highlighted as a committee, then there's no reason why we can't put it in there, if it's already funded. So that could be one of them, for example.
I think I would feel a lot more comfortable if there was a specific mention of groundwater flood risk in here somewhere.
Thank you. I think Councillor Hawkins, then Councillor Walker.
I've got a couple of questions. I mean, obviously, the first one is I think the mugger thing is a wrong thing in the wrong place, and that bulls and river don't go together. But we'll have to wait and see what the public think. And obviously, if the public turn round and send in saying they don't want it, will Spelthorne then override it? Or will they turn around and respect the views of those in the survey?
I think we have to wait until the consultation closes, which is Sunday, and then as per the report, the consultation responses will be reviewed and considered by myself and Linda Heron. And should the responses not be favourable, then we will be required to put a report back to this committee for them to make a decision going forward.
So basically, although people can write in and say we don't want it, it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, if it came out, I don't know, 60% didn't want it and 40% did, that wouldn't be respected. That would still be considered to go for councillor decision.
If I go back to what I said, at the end of the day, if subject to the end of the consultation, we'll have to review what the responses were, and if the responses, the percentages of responses were not favourable, then that would be something that Linda and I would consult with, and then if required, we would then, or if we decided that the option would be to go back to committee, and then committee would have to make that decision as to whether or not that went ahead or not.
So you're going...
So just to add to that, ultimately you as councillors make the decision, and sometimes you have to make unpopular decisions. I'm not saying this is one of them, but you know, you have to make a decision which you think is best for the authority. That's what you're elected for. So that's the purpose, is even though, you know, we can't predict what or say now what the results will be, but if it came back, as Jackie said, is to come back to you to make a decision how you want to take it forward. It's not, we wouldn't just listen to, you know, take what is said in the consultation and just walk away from it, because that's the decision that committee made. They wanted to bring it back if that was the case. So that's...
No, I just turn around and it goes back to the thing of, you know, you've asked people's opinions. If people's opinion was, we don't want it, you then say, well, it doesn't really matter, we'll override it.
Can I just reassure you, sorry, so as we said, if the consultation proves not favourable to actually putting a mugger in Memorial Gardens, a report will be given to committee, and then committee yourselves will make the decision as to whether or not you decide to follow the responses from those that were consulted or gave their responses, or whether you decided to move outside of what the feedback was.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackie,
Right,
for that clear explanation.
yeah,
Sorry,
hang on a
Councillor
minute.
Barker had a question now, I think.
Yeah. Could, on the...
You've got another question, Councillor?
Yes, I do, thank you.
Oh, sorry, I thought you had two already, sorry.
On the environment section, could you please add in River Ash to that, and the clearing part of it, River Ash in Shepperton, River Ash Walkway?
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. There are plans in place. The biodiversity officer is looking at that and how that will be funded. So that is being looked at separately.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'd still ask for it to be recorded, because this is Environment Sustainability Committee, and the River Ash is getting more and more blocked and more inaccessible, and the river is so blocked with trees that I would like it recorded and known by others the state that it is in.
There is work ongoing, and there is plans to have remove some of the trees this autumn, and also have a staged approach to looking at the river contours, because the River Ash is very artificial. Its flow is artificial. It's controlled by the Environment Agency. So there have been discussions with the Environment Agency to look at a plan as to how we can improve things in Studios Walk area.
It's not the main, it's the bit where they've got these trees blocking the flow.
Yeah,
There
that
is
whole
no
bit.
flow.
Yeah.
So you are telling, in autumn, you are telling me that that will be cleared, and that the river will be able to
There's a
feed.
planned approach. The biodiversity officer is taking that forward, and she's been in discussions with the Environment Agency. So I'm sure she will be informing people of that soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there's one more question, Councillor Barker.
Oh, thank you, Jill. Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable about the consultation because I have had a lot of feedback from residents just about we never get listened to, you're going to do it anyway. I admit, when the consultation first came up, I come from a sports background. I was very much, yes, anything because nothing's happened for so long. But listening to people and running alongside with the master plan, it does tend to, they don't really go hand in hand. We're asking people to do a focus group about what they want for Moira Gardens. And then if we decide then, even if the public say we don't really want it, that we're just going to overrule it anyway, I'm quite uncomfortable with that. That's quite difficult. And I think we'd find that really hard to justify. Just the second point, not related to the Muga, thank God. Just on this point 4 in the community section, design and deliver a promotional campaign featuring issues and proposals to West Surrey Council to inform future plans. What is that and who is that actually for? I'm a bit confused as to why we'd be spending money on that. Thank you.
I think this is mainly around, it's just making sure people understand what's happening in the community, you know, so that the community can get involved at an early stage in some of these things. It's about just, it's a fact, it's happening.
So more Spelthorne residents
yeah,
about what's,
okay,
yeah,
that's
I
what
think,
it's about.
yeah, it's a good thing, but at the same time, hopefully we wouldn't spend too much time and money.
No, well, as I say, it's all within existing budget, so it's going to be done within a reasonable budget, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. And Councillor Nichols, one more.
Thank you, Chair. Environment Action 1 says supports Spelthorne's long-term interest in the development of Heathrow expansion proposals and the River Thames scheme. I went and had a look at our website because I was concerned that we should be leaving our position on Heathrow very clear for West Surrey, and it's not. The website still contains a statement from former leader Ian Harvey welcoming the expansion of Heathrow. We want a fully privately funded light rail link into Heathrow, apparently, still. So it's out of date, and I think it's really important that we get our public face in line with what our actual policy is. So if we could add an action to review the public information available on Heathrow, I think that would be very helpful, and I hope it wouldn't cost too much.
Laura, would like to respond to that? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nichols. Yes, our website pages are in need of updating, and we are aware capacity is the issue to an extent, but we are on that. We are obviously actively engaging with the Heathrow DCO process, and it is extremely resource heavy, like you would not believe, but we're in a strong position. I won't go into all the details today because we're going to be bringing separate meetings to you. In terms of our position as a borough, the last agreed position of Spelthorne on Heathrow is the one set out in policy SP7, I believe, of the local plan, which is in support of expansion subject to caveats. I have discussed this with the leader, and we will be coming back to you with briefings, updates, and also to bring a report to committee to get an understanding of what the council's position is now and moving forward. So it's all very much in hand, but we do need to be able to commit the resources to it to make sure, while we're still Spelthorne effectively, we're also at a point in the DCO process where we can have the most influence. So that's why that's in there.
If I might just come back here. That's all great. I'm going to impolitely say that the statements we hold are a little bit woolly at the moment about this. And what really bothers me is how West Surrey pick up on the clarity that we want. You know, West Surrey need to understand the implications for a giant car park in Stanwell, for example, because if you live in Guildford, you won't know. And I just want us to leave a really clear message.
Thank you. That everybody agreed on that point. That's excellent. So can I read out the last point here? Does the committee agree? Councillor Clark. Last question.
Thanks, Chair. So I want to support what Councillor Barker's really getting on. And I think there's when I go to my local residents association meeting, we have a briefing by someone who does he talks about sort of scams and things like that. And he says, if you don't trust the link, don't click on it. And I think there's a lot of old people who don't trust links. They might trust social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever else, but they just don't like, pressing on links. So they're happy to comment on the Muga in particular, and in all the multiple times that it's been pushed, I've only ever seen one positive comment for it. Whereas there's been hundreds of comments, and it's been very clear, and we've spoken about it, and those comments will not be taken into consideration. And I think that's, if you're putting something on social media, you listen to the social media, as well as people who actually put the stuff on the survey. But I think this comes to a real issue. There's a febrile sense in the country at the moment, and I think locally, and I think there's a distrust of, and I think the government have really handled it badly, there's a distrust of not necessarily the civil service, but just the people who seem to be governing us, that stuff is being done to us and we don't like it, HMOs and other bits and pieces like that. So I think in the last 10 months, we need to be absolutely transparent, and we need to be seen to be absolutely transparent about everything. Just absolute honesty. And I think the Muga is absolutely a case in point where it's been pushed and pushed. I don't think people trust it. And as soon as people lose faith, it all falls apart.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. But bearing in mind the consultation hasn't finished yet, so we will be discussing it again. But Jackie has a comment to make.
Yeah, can I just reassure you that we're aware that comments don't necessarily go through the link of the consultation, and as a result we'll also be considering all of the comments that are made on social media and various other platforms, Facebook, etc., because there have been a lot, and I've already seen some of them, and they will be taken into consideration as well.
Thank you very much indeed. I think we draw a line there. I think Councillor Sexton, very last point.
I'll be very brief if I
Then we
may,
can get
Chair.
on.
It's in terms of the recommendations of this report, it's obviously everything highlighted in yellow. It's whether or not this, the recommendations on here are agreed fully, or whether or not the point that I made in terms of the Love Where We Live campaign, adding confusion should be added, or it wasn't added last time, as you will know, which has been added now, as to whether or not it should be taken off. I just think that you need to get consensus, and then we can vote then, Chair. Thank you. And the other item that I wanted just to raise is, in terms of the SIL funding, if we do not use it before vesting day, i.e. we lose our sovereignty, and my understanding is that we will lose it. Can anyone clarify that for me, please?
I don't believe any final decision has been taken on that, but I think in other authorities which have gone through this, it has gone into a central pot. So I can't say for certain, but that certainly is a risk. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to highlight it, so we need to use it.
Right, okay. Does the committee agree to provide comments as discussed during the debate to form part of the proposed transitional plan?
Sorry, Chair, sorry, Glenn, can you?
No, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think what we just need to do is get consensus from the committee. Councillor Sexton's made a suggestion about taking something out of there. If you agree with that, then we can take that. The decision isn't being made by you tonight. It will go back to CPRC, but it will be a clear recommendation from the Environment Sustainability Committee.
Is there something more important that we can move on to on this list that hasn't been highlighted? Do you understand where I'm coming from? It's down to this committee, correct? Thank you.
If you want to make any suggestions, yeah.
Councillor Williams?
I don't think that adding groundwater flood risk to this actually incurs much cost, so I would hope that would be a fairly uncontroversial addition if the committee agrees.
But I do think for the point 2, the wording maybe should change, because progress plans for the Mugger does sound like it's been agreed, and obviously we haven't finished the consultation. So I think the wording, as long as it is agreed that we can put it into other things, if it isn't that, then I'm happy with that. But as it stands, it sounds like this is the exhaustive list and this is what we're going with. So I just want to clarify that before we obviously agree that.
I don't believe our agreed with our SIL spend is set out quite clearly in in a set series of events, which involves holding the local SIL task groups and then them referring their decisions up to the strategic SIL task group, and the membership of those is set out, and then it does come up for information to ENS committee, and if it's over £1 million, it goes to CPRC and so on. So I don't think we could take a decision this evening on something specific on a SIL matter, but I would refer to legal for any further guidance.
Sandy, would you like to have a word? Oh, you're okay. Oh, Lee, go ahead.
Thank you. If I could just confirm, yes, it's not here to be decided. It would need to go to CPRC. Oh,
So if it's more than £1 million SIL spend, it does go to CPRC, but taking any decision on SIL this evening, I believe, is outside our agreed SIL process.
yes.
So we couldn't specify anything tonight in what's agreed.
Yeah. Yes. Can I just hand over to Linda as well?
Thank you, Rose. Good evening, councillors. Can I just point out that committee has made a decision in relation to MAGA, and that decision stands. So there is a process to be followed. And I've heard the debate, and I hear what you say in terms of outcome of the consultation. But nevertheless, the committee decided that there will be certain gateways which we will have to comply with. And one of the requirements was to take an update report to the to CPRC. Was it CPRC or was it the CPRC? And another of the safeguards was that progression of the project was conditional on favourable outcome of the consultation. So by the fact that the decision has been taken, and then it gives certain conditions that would prevent the officers from progressing this particular project any further, unless all the conditions are satisfied. So I hope that gives you comfort that although in this particular plan it says progress plans for multi-use sorry, I need to see what I'm saying, games area, it actually obviously all subject to existing conditions and constraints that the officers have to comply with. So I hope that gives you comfort that it's not a done deal. This will all be subject to checks and balances and in accordance with decisions taken previously. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Borkflower.
Chair, I don't think Councillor Barker asked for that. I think she just asked for it to be reworded. It puts the true position of it. That reads as it's going to happen, and it's not until it's passed the test. I think the wording there needs to be reworded, and that's all that Councillor Barker asked for. Why are we getting into the debate about X, Y and Z? I have no idea. I really don't.
I think we missed Councillor Barker's question, actually, because of other people were talking. But Sandy, would just like to say...
Yes, absolutely understand where you're coming from. Thank you for that. Actually, behind this, that Lee hasn't mentioned, is a more detailed deliverability plan being developed, and that bit actually is in there. So, yeah, so we are trying to cover that. It is subject to the outcome.
Thank you. Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry to go on this, but there is a closing date approaching for SIL applications, isn't there? Is it the 30th of the month? Yes.
Yes, the local SIL bidding rounds have closed, and we're preparing the bids and getting the papers together and looking to book the spending boards. And yes, the closing date for the strategic is the 30th of June. Everything is happening on the 30th of June.
Okay, thank you. My question next, is there any possibility, if there is money left over, to reopen bids for SIL before the 1st of April? In other words, to make sure we spend the money.
We may not have enough in the local pots for the bids we have anyway, so it may be an opportunity. But yes, I mean, you could possibly add a recommendation tonight to say if SIL is not, if appropriate, another short SIL bidding round will be held before the end of West Surrey.
I don't see it needs to be added, but knowing that we could do that is valuable. Thank you.
Right. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I'll be very, very brief. May I make a recommendation? I'm happy with everything in yellow, and as I said, if everybody else is, apart from item 3, I do genuinely believe, and it's up to members in here, that the take a proactive partnership-led approach to reducing antisocial behaviour, ASB, ensuring residents feel safe in their communities, is more important in my mind. We're seeing what we've seen in Surrey Live, the antisocial behaviour predominantly in Staines, etc. Us being the second worst borough to be in Surrey is not good. May I make a recommendation, if everybody agrees, is to move number 3 to number 1 under the community heading. I think that would really assure our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions? These comments aren't being recorded, by the way.
Sorry, I think that the actions are set out not in any particular order. They weren't prioritized, or they weren't in an order of priority. The number 1 action that you pointed out, that actually falls under the remit of the Community Wellbeing and Housing Committee, and I believe they considered that at their meeting last week.
Yeah,
So what are you saying, we don't need further funding?
The 1 to 3 is not a priority order for that particular area, it's just numbering them just as a...
I understand that, but if there's funding going towards number 3, extra funding can go towards number 1, because we know for a fact we don't have enough police, and if there's overtime that could be had with joint enforcement team, etc., whatever we can do to improve the antisocial behaviour in our towns, we must do, especially in the summer months. It's absolutely important.
Okay. Any other?
So what the committee is being asked to do is to look at the highlighted bits of the transitional plan. Those are the bits that fall within the remit of this committee. This committee will make those recommendations to the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee, who will be able to oversee everything in the transitional plan before they make a recommendation to council. So if anything further arises, I believe that the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee should be able to propose any additional changes before they make that recommendation to council, and council will have the final say.
Thank you.
Sorry, so just for clarity, we're not allowed to make that recommendation, even though it's this committee that takes it to CPRC. Is that what you're saying?
Not on that specific action, because that is within the remit of the Community Wellbeing and Housing Committee. However, you can feed back to your colleagues who are on Community Wellbeing and Housing Committee, and when it's reviewed by Corporate Policy and Resources, those comments can be provided there when the plan is again looked at as a whole.
Okay, so with that in mind, is this chamber happy for 3 to not be yellow, because it wasn't yellow before, and not to confuse the public, because we'll be going into another authority within 9 months, and actually focus the funding that has been enabled there to be utilised elsewhere? That is all I'm requesting, because just like the SIL money, if you don't use it, we're going to lose it. I'm just really mindful in terms of the priorities under the cares of each one of these. It may be that there might be something else that somebody wants to, this chamber might want to focus on, whether it's in community, addressing housing need, etc. But because there is no financial element assigned to this, it's quite difficult to determine as to whether or not. But my view is that I do recommend all of these, apart from item 3, and ideally number 1 would be more favourable. But it's obviously down to this chamber, my understanding, is to decide that.
Sorry, can I just clarify? So this is you're just talking about item 3 under community, because there's item 3 is under other areas.
My sincere apologies.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So you're suggesting we take that whole line out, and I think it's limited financial, limited sort of financial situation, but it's more about staffing resources probably in that area. Yeah.
Sandy has a point.
If I can just say, for example, I know you mentioned about the Report It tool, but that is actually well used by our residents. It's already on the website, so there is no cost associated with that, for example.
This is actually saying is to, if I'm correct in saying, develop a further phase, what type of campaign are we looking at? What is it that we seek to achieve with this? Because it's not very clear in here as to what extent that that's going to cover. So perhaps we need clarity on it, please.
Okay.
If it's just some more, is it banners? Sorry, they're correct, the appropriate word, banners that are put out, or leaflets or whatever into the Spelthorne Borough display units, etc., then I'm sure everybody would be happy with that. But if it means more than that, then we will be spending more money. So can we get clarity, please?
I mean, I haven't got that detail in front of me here, but I think it's broadly along those lines. But I think this committee can make a decision if they want to just take that line out in terms of love where you live, and you can do that. You can recommend that. I'm obviously a CPRC to make the decision. And again, if by the time we get to CPRC, we could probably be, well, we should be able to say to that committee, well, it's been a recommendation for me, unless that line comes out, it will save this, or it won't save a huge amount of money, but it will save resources. We can firm up on that if the committee wants to do that, yeah.
Thank you, Lee. I think the statement does say do we agree to provide comments as discussed during the debate? And those comments that you've been making have been recorded. So I think that is what we've been doing, really. So I read this out about 10 minutes ago. So shall I read it out again? Does the committee agree to provide comments as discussed during the debate to form part of the proposed transitional plan? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 9 is updates from task and finish on working groups. This item is to receive an update on the Climate and Nature Working Group. A still update has been provided and issued as a supplement yesterday. So this is the work on the Climate and Nature Group. Sorry, I have to read all this out to you. Research and partnerships. We hosted a University of Surrey MSc student on placement. She decided to focus her dissertation on local government reorganisation, climate change impacts and how these are reflected in policy across Surrey boroughs and any new authorities. The group received a presentation on the Colne Valley Regional Park, covering governance, partnership working and the need to show Spelthorne's role clearly in future authority arrangements. Strategic context and risks. Members discussed wider infrastructure and planning pressures, including the Heathrow expansion, the Southern Rail Link and the Thames scheme. Hydromix pilot at the Greenough Centre. Gas savings improved from around 8% to 15% once the right concentration was achieved. The pilot delivered around £700 in savings and reduced emissions by about 3 tonnes of CO2 during the monitoring period. Performance was affected by issues with the older heating system and leaks, which highlighted delivery risks. The main learning is that HydroMX should only be used in well-maintained systems. Any future rollout should focus on targeted sites supported by technical surveys rather than a blanket approach. The Big Green Week, 6th to 14th of June. The Big Green Week successfully showcased local action on climate, nature and sustainability. The Elmsley Centre served as a main hub for residents, organisations and experts, including retrofit and energy advice. Key events included a green forum and a screening of the National Emergency film, both contributing to a successful programme. By the way, Arthur is sending out a link to that. If you didn't manage to see the one on the Friday night, there are going to be other events showing it around the borough, so look out for that. It's apparently very good. Finally, policy and next steps. The group noted that the Spelthorne climate change strategy, which runs to 2030, may need to be reviewed in the light of local government reorganisation. Work on LGR coordination is continuing, including how climate data is managed and shared. Thank you. Are there any questions on that? Does the committee note the update? Thank you. Forward plan, item 10. The forward plan can be found on pages 373 to 376 of the agenda. Does the committee have any questions on the forward plan? Councillor Williams.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier on about inviting Dr. Paul to come and give us an update. Is it worth penciling in a provisional as one of these dates?
Yeah.
I don't know, sorry.
Because Dr. Paul's work has not been commissioned by the council, it wouldn't be appropriate for him to be an item on ENS committee. if members wanted a briefing from Dr. Paul, that is something that could be organised, but not as part of a statutory committee.
So we only invite people that we've commissioned to do work for this committee. That doesn't sound right.
It was debated at quite some length last time. Dr. Paul is a professional academic who is doing some work, which he has been funded by, you know, university funding, and that is interesting. And we have included in the specification for the groundwater technical guidance that Dr. Paul will input, for example, but we are not commissioning Dr. Paul to complete work for us. We are interested in what he's done. You know, he isn't delivering a paper to ENS committee asking the council for a recommendation. It was debated previously. You know, a member briefing can be, you know, arranged subject to agreement with committee services, or an individual member could invite him to do a briefing either at a community centre or something else, but it isn't done as part of a statutory committee.
Thank you. Councillor Beecher.
To put it simply, Dr. Paul can always just say no. And it is in his rights to do so.
Can I just check, Chair? So we asked earlier whether or not Dr. Paul could come in and give us an update. I certainly would like that, but what you're saying is it can't be specific to a committee, which I get where you're coming from. But can that, so is it for us then to address that and ask Dr. Paul to come in and then clarify with committee services that this chamber can be used accordingly to update people, just for clarification, because that's what's happened in the past?
I believe that is the process that happened last time.
Okay, so it will be down to a councillor to take that
A
forward.
councillor does checks with committee services if the committee, for example, is that the chamber is available or a suitable
That's what's
room.
happened previously.
Yeah.
Thank you. We will do that, thank you.
Thank you. That sounds a good suggestion. Councillor Hawkins has a question.
Can we confirm if there'll be any charge associated with Dr. Paul coming in and speaking with us?
I wasn't involved in the arrangements last time, so I wouldn't know. Certainly, I don't recall a line in our budget hasn't paid for anything, for example, but I don't know who organised it, if there was any funding available.
Perhaps we could look into that, find out what happened last time.
There was no committee service members here at the time. It was just a short period of time. It was 1 hour. We were in and out of here, so there would be no costs.
Councillor Beecher.
Dr. Paul's previous work was funded by external, nothing to do with the council. It was all done as part of the Royal Holloway work.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right. Any other points at all? I think that concludes the business for this evening. Thank you all for your questions, comments, and especially the officers for all their...
Does the committee note the forward plan?
Oh gosh, sorry, I forgot to do something. Does the committee note the forward plan for future business of this committee? Thank you very much. Sorry, now that is conclusion of the business. Thanks you all very much. Yeah, no.